Hello and welcome to another Catechism Tuesday. Today we are taking a look at the Sacrament of the Altar, parts 3 and 4, which will conclude our look at the Sacrament of the Altar. How can bodily eating and drinking do such great things? Certainly not just eating and drinking do these things, but the words written here, given and shed for you for the forgiveness of sins. These words, along with the bodily eating and drinking, are the main thing in the sacrament. Whoever believes these words has exactly what they say, forgiveness of sins. Who receives this sacrament worthily? Fasting and bodily preparation are certainly fine outward training. But that person is truly worthy and well prepared who has faith in these words, given and shed for you for the forgiveness of sins. But anyone who does not believe these words or doubts them is unworthy and unprepared, for the words "for you" require all hearts to believe. So how can forgiveness of sins and new life and salvation all be delivered through bread and wine? Well, it's not just going through the motions of eating and drinking, but it's faith that trusts that Jesus himself will give us what he says he will give us. So he promises forgiveness of sins. Therefore, we will receive forgiveness of sins. He promises that the wine is his blood and the bread is his body, and therefore we believe exactly what he says because Jesus' word is always trustworthy. Who then receives the sacrament in a worthy way, and why does it even matter? Why is it a big deal? Well, we receive it rightly when we do so trusting that God will give exactly what he promised, when we do so in faith. And this matters because we can actually receive the sacrament to our detriment. St. Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians 11:27 and 28. He says, "Whoever therefore eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty concerning the body and blood of the Lord. Let a person examine himself then, and so eat of the bread and drink of the cup." There were some in the church in Corinth who were actually getting sick and even dying because they were receiving the Lord's Supper in an unworthy way. They were receiving it apart from faith. And so it is important that we examine ourselves so that we receive the Lord's Supper in a worthy way. So then how can we examine ourselves? How do you examine yourself before you receive the Lord's Supper? Well, here's some of the questions you can ask. Am I sorry for my sins? Do I believe in Jesus Christ? Do I believe I will receive his body and blood, along with the forgiveness of sins in this sacrament? Do I confess the same beliefs as the congregation I'm receiving the Lord's Supper at? Do I intend, with God's help, to seek to live in holiness, to try to live a good, holy, God-pleasing life, not just to go right back to my sinful ways? Now, who should not receive the Lord's Supper? Those who are not Christians, those who are not able to examine themselves. That would include little children. That would include those who are in a coma, unconscious, those who don't understand, can't understand for whatever reason what they are going to receive because they cannot examine themselves. Those who are Christians of a different confession of faith, since the Lord's Supper is also a testimony of unity in faith and doctrine. So if you are part of another denomination, well, then you should not receive the Lord's Supper at just every church. You would want to receive it where you are in agreement with what that church believes and teaches and confesses, because when you receive the Lord's Supper at a congregation, you are saying, I am at one with this congregation. I believe what they teach, what they confess. Also, those who are openly and willfully unrepentant. They are living in sin. They're doing something they know to be wrong, and they do not want to change that. They want to continue doing what they know to be sinful. And finally, those who refuse to forgive or to be reconciled with someone else. So we want to, before we go to the Lord's Supper, seek to be reconciled with others. Now, sometimes it's not possible. We seek to be reconciled, but the other party will not be reconciled to us. But we want to be reconciled with others. All right, so that concludes our look at the Lord's Supper. That also concludes our look at the 6 chief parts of the Catechism, which means that we are about done with the Catechism Tuesday series. I am going to do another video next week on Luther's morning prayer and evening prayer, and we may have another video or two after that. We'll have to see, but that will about wrap up our look at Luther's Small Catechism. Once we are completely done with the Small Catechism, we will then be moving on to take a look at the Augsburg Confession. And I look forward to being with you again next week for what is possibly our last Catechism Tuesday video.